Welcome back, dear viewers. Thank you for staying with us here on The Breakfast Show. The strategy of sustainable development in Egypt, Egypt Vision 2030, aims to reduce the density of energy by 14% by the year 2030 to produce more locally produced energy, at the same time boost added economic value of the energy production and preserve the increase in the efficiency of energy in production and consuming. To shed more light on the issue, we are most delighted to be joined here in the studio by Dr. Hafez Salmawy, professor at the Faculty of Engineering at Zakazikh University and former head of Egypt ERA, that's the Electric Utility and Protection Regulatory Agency. A very good morning to you, Dr. Salmawy.
Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for being with us, sir. Now, first of all, talk to us about Egypt Vision 2030 for sustainable development in the field of energy.
Egypt strategy for 2030, or what they call it, Egypt Sustainable Development Goal Strategy for 2030, is a strategy for the whole country. It includes socio-economic and environmental objectives. One of these objectives relevant to the energy sector, as you mentioned, that Egypt is targeting to have self-sufficiency of its energy needs. So this is one of the targets by 2030. Egypt now is an energy importer in some energy importer as well as exporter. But I mean, still we are importing part of our liquid energy needs, oil. Also, one of the objectives of the strategy, as you mentioned, is to improve the energy intensity. What's mean by energy intensity? Energy intensity, how much you make a value added from each unit of energy you consume. For example, for electricity, currently we produce 200 terawatt hour of electricity. And our economy is around $340 billion. This means that each kilowatt we injected to our grid generate around $1.7. So as we improve this number, it means that you could produce, make more money from each unit of energy, or for the same amount of money you will use less energy. So this is also, if you talk about general from primary fuel supply like oil and gas and other fuel supplies, we consume around 70 million tons, which means that every 0.2 ton produce $1,000 in our economy. As we improve this by 14%, it means that we will reduce our energy needs, or we, with the same amount of energy, we will have more income from this amount of energy. So this is one of the objectives.
Yes.
Secondly, also, one of the main objectives of the strategy is to be inclusive. Inclusive, it means that nobody being left behind. It means that vulnerable consumers should be taken care of, which means that we should supply them their energy need, improve access to energy. Sure, Egypt have very good, achievement in access to energy. We have over 99% of people have an access to electricity, and the strategy by 2030, 100%, which I believe this number relevant to developed country, not a developing country by any way. Also reduce the environmental impact of the energy sector, so as we switch more to renewable energy and improve our practice for energy efficiency, our energy sector will have less impact on the environment. In general, the sustainable development strategy is inconsistent with the sustainable energy goals, which is issued by the United Nations as the sustainable development goal by 2030, specifically goal number 7, which is relevant to, as we talk for energy, which is relevant for energy.
Right. Now, Dr. Salmawy, you mentioned the environment, the importance of protecting the environment. So how is the issue of using renewable energy a necessity at the time when we are suffering from climate change and global warming? We want you to make the case.
Yes. Currently, we talk usually about what we call it energy transition. Currently, the energy sector is going through a transitional period. The main driver for energy transition is environment or climate change. So the main objective is to reduce the impact of the energy sector on the environment. In general, around the world, 25% of the emission of greenhouse gases come from electricity generation. And if you consider transportation, electricity generation, transportation, industry, and other uses for energy, energy sector is responsible for 80% of the greenhouse gases around the world. So it's very much important to address the energy sector as a way to address climate change. But renewable energy is not just limited for climate change, which is the main objective, but also renewable energy is an indigenous resource. So as we rely more on renewable energy, it means that we rely more on indigenous resource and have much better energy security. Renewable energy currently is cheaper than conventional energy. For example, to generate 1 kilowatt hour from the best efficient power plant nowadays is around 5.4, 5.3 cents per kilowatt hour. The recent bids Egypt has made is 2 cents per kilowatt hour from solar PV and 3 cents per kilowatt hour from wind energy. So
that's almost half the cost.
Almost less even than half. So this shows that you will get financial benefit, you will get much better security of energy supply as they rely on indigenous resources, and most importantly, less emissions, which could come from use of electricity, or in general for other purposes for energy.
So, Dr. Salmawy, how do you see Egypt's plans? Before I talk about electric vehicles, which I know is that you have big researches on that specific topic, I wanted to ask you, what are the sectors or the areas of industry and where we can save energy and use more renewable energy and have an added value? The sectors that we should, keep hobbling around.
Yes. Actually, one of the main objectives of the strategy, sustainable energy strategy, is to develop energy strategy, an integrated and comprehensive and sustainable energy strategy for the country. And based on this, Egypt has developed its energy integrated energy strategy for 2035. Usually because the energy sector projects takes time. So when you targeting 2030, you at least should have a strategy 5 years more to be sure that you will achieve the 2030 targets. According to the 2035 energy strategy, there is a specific component for energy efficiency. 3 sectors are mainly in concern. Industrial sector, transportation sector, and building sector. When I mean building sector, it's not just residential. Building, it means hotel, hospitals, all these are buildings. So these 3 main sectors, the objective is to save 18% by 2035 of these sectors. Actually, savings could be done by 2 approaches. One of them is fuel switching, where you could use renewable energy instead of conventional fuel, like solar top roof systems or solar water heaters or whatever. Industrial heating is one of the main energy consuming in many industrial sectors, in addition for electricity. Or you can use energy efficiency practices. Energy efficiency practice, the simplest way, you always just know, use LED lamp instead of old bulb lamps. For example, lighting represents around 30% of our energy consumption. So it's substantial on an average. Some low income might consume over 80%, and high income maybe consume just 5% of their total energy consumption, but on average you talk about 30%. So lighting could be use high efficiency motors, improve, reduce losses in electrical systems. So there is many technologies which could be applied for solar, air conditioning, improve insulation, improve equipment standards and its specific energy consumption. Nowadays we have a label for each type of equipment which shows how much this equipment consume energy, which is being ranked between A to E, where A is the highest, and currently in many parts of the world there is A+ and A++, which means that this is much more efficient. Just to give you an idea, for refrigerators, normal refrigerator, old refrigerator might consume around 100 kilowatt hour per month. Currently, many refrigerators, specifically which is equipped with inverter technology, as we say, might consume 30. So less than 1/3 of electricity for the same use. So energy efficiency doesn't mean that I will disturb your comfort or make you feeling less comfort, but I make you use whatever you use needs from energy, but with less energy consumption. So focusing on this is very much important, and come electric cars as a part for the transportation sector.
I want to ask you about that. So how do you see the future of manufacturing electric vehicles in Egypt? And again, you've had so many researchers, a very important one on that topic with your students.
I see it as a necessity. I just give you, we have developed in the university a program for predicting how much electric vehicle we're going to have by 2030. And we built that model, which we call it stochastic model, because I don't know exactly how many kilometers you use your car for every year, many of this kilometer you go through inside the city or outside the city, what kind of car you... So this is fully stochastic model. And it shows that if we applied the current policies we have, which is exemption from the custom duties as well as reduced registration costs, we will reach by 2030 around 1 million private car, and which represent around 16.5% of the total car by 2030, and we might reach 270,000 taxi, which will represent around 37% of the taxi. But if we apply proactive policies, what kind of proactive policies? Local manufacturing, which means that reducing the cost and make more value added, not just importing car. So enabling soft finance to acquire new cars, restricting cars, ordinary car from going to some parts of the city like downtown because it's polluting cars, restricting renewal for registration for car after 30 years, maybe applying some kind of a tax for carbon emission for gasoline car or car which is used light diesel. Not all these measures will be applied once. It will be applied progressively. We might reach 2 million cars. So double the number of cars, which could represent around 31% of the car, and we will reach
of the private cars.
Of private car by 2030, and 47% of the taxis. What this will save? This will save, if we go for the proactive policy, around 4.5 million tons of gasoline. This will be equivalent to 4.9 ton oil equivalent. How much it will consume from electricity? Considering the structure of the electricity sector, by 2030 it will consume 8 terawatt hour, which will consume 1.5 million ton oil equivalent. So a net saving of 3.4 million ton will be saved energy efficiency.
How much of, how can we translate that into dollars?
3.4 million, 1 million ton of gasoline is equivalent to $1,600, this international price. So if you talk about 3.5 million, so you talk close to $5 billion a year.
$5 billion a year.
Most importantly, around 10 million ton of CO2 emission will be avoided. And most importantly, this car is running around inside and around the city, while the generation plant is outside. So local concentration of emission is much less. So it's a pollution, because we have climate change and we have pollution. Pollution, right, which is other kind of emission in addition to CO2, CO, unburned hydrocarbons, NOxes. So we will reduce pollution. We will reduce CO2 emission, which is climate change. We will save money, $5 billion.
And certainly $5 billion per year will be very influential in the economy at large, and thus the standard of living for citizens.
This is called rotating economy, which means this $5 billion will be used to finance, soft finance for consumer to get electric cars. So you have a kind of rotating economy which will help and improve the economy as a whole. This means, by the way, reduce cost of mobility or transportation for goods and services and people. So it helps.
That's if we use the proactive, what you called
it's a proactive policy. Even if you use the base scenario,
you still save like 2 or 3
yes,
billion.
But I mean, there is nothing prevent you from using proactive scenario. Be more ambitious to achieve much better. And I believe that even in the near future, the process will be much more accelerating. This is what we expect by today. But the momentum is going like a snowball. Most of international companies which produce cars have committed itself. It will not produce an IC car, internal combustion car, or car operate with gasoline or light diesel after 2035. So this momentum will continue. So this is an international trend.
Now, will all the investments in this area, the electric vehicles, be private investments? Should we expect that? Or should we expect some sort of partnership?
It's an investment private, but regulatory is a government. When we say that support local manufacture, it means that the government could enable a kind of given incentives for local manufacturer. When we say that enabling soft finance, it means that the government might have program to enable soft financing for people to purchase car which is produced by private sector. When we talk restricting or talk licensing or talk customs, this is the government role, which is a regulatory role, but investment is being done by private. Right. So you create a conducive environment for investor. When I produce a car, I could ensure a market, so the government who creates the market and the private who provide finance to
So there
produce.
is partnership anyway.
It's a partnership.
Yes. So, sir, how do you see the importance of choosing Egypt to host COP27, COP27?
COP27, sure. I mean, first, COP, it's a United Nations conference, so it's not an Egyptian conference. But Egypt hosting that because Egypt has proved or presented its credits to host this. Egypt has a successful renewable energy program. Egypt has a good commitment for environment. Egypt is now playing, considered like an energy hub for the East Mediterranean. Egypt is one of the, I don't say high producer, but one of the producer of low emission fuel like natural gas and exporter, and now Egypt resumed its role. And Egypt has a capacity to host such big event, which being attended by several presidents around the world. Right. And most importantly, Egypt playing a key role both in the Middle East and in Africa. So this is a second time or third time COP being hosted in Africa, although Sharm el-Sheikh is not exactly in Africa, but in Egypt, I mean, but it was in Marrakesh in Morocco and in South Africa and now in Egypt. But sure, Egypt could take it forward. And Egypt is targeting for sure to have this successful session of COP, because not all COP was quite successful, many were. But we would like to stamp our COP to be one of the successful COPs around COPs.
Indeed.
Indeed, yes.
Indeed, Dr. Salmawy. As we close out, we only have a couple of minutes left here. So, again, back to where we started, the vision, the 2030 vision, the the issue of security, energy security. But aside from, you know, the electric vehicles, what other areas can we really move with in order to achieve energy security and save money and have an added value to our economy and our lifestyle?
Energy security, or I would say in general, energy transition, renewable energy, energy efficiency, digitalizations. Energy efficiency, I mean energy rationalization and improving energy. Digitalization is very much important. Electrification, which we switch as much as possible of activities or which use oil and gas fuel to electricity. So, and electricity, if it's produced from renewable, you will get much better. So electrification, renewable, energy efficiency, digitalization, which is used, artificial intelligence application in many energy sector and control, which improve the performance and reduce losses within the sector. So this represents a package how things could move forward in order to improve energy security, reduce emission, and improve quality of service to consumer.
It's been very informative, sir. Thank you very much.
It's my
Dr. Hafez Salmawy, professor at the Faculty of Engineering at Zaghazigh University and former head of Egypt's ERA, that's Egypt's Electric Utility and Consumer Protection Regulatory Agency. Thank you very much, Dr. Salmawy.
Thank you for having me.
A very good morning to you.
You too.
And again, it's been very, very informative. Dear viewers, please stay with us. My dear colleague Nermeen Abdurrahman will be back here shortly to talk about the joy that we all enjoyed last night. Egypt's football team at the CAN producing yet another excellent performance and defeating the tough Moroccans by 2-1, advancing to the semi-finals of CAN in Cameroon. Please stay with us.
اللي بيتعمل ده من فضل ربنا علينا، بنتقدم وهنتقدم اكتر، وده اللي يهمنا ان احنا ندي للناس امل ان في تغيير وفي فرص للعمل. القوات المسلحه لما تقوم بالدور ده مش على حساب ابدا القطاع الخاص او القطاع المدني، بالعكس القطاع الخاص مرحب بيه للشراكه. أقول لكل من شارك في إنجاح وإخراج المصنعين في أقصر وقت كل الشكر وكل التقدير ليكم.